We have Hari from Spearbit moderating the panel, Ernesto from Aave, Sara Reynolds from Uniswap, Erik from Euler, and Merlin from Morpho.
Hello, can you hear me? Is that all good? OK, perfect.
Hello.
So let's get started right away. So DeFi as a concept was invented about 6 years ago. And since then, it's quite mature today. And I wanted to bring some of the largest DeFi protocols out here and ask about their challenges in building, scaling, and securing their protocols. So today, I have two protocols that are synonymous to the concept of DeFi, Aave and Uniswap. And then I have two more who are younger, hungrier, and ambitious protocols, Morpho and Euler. I wanted to learn about their challenges in building the protocol and what we can all learn from it. So let me start with Ernesto. I genuinely think he has one of the hardest jobs in crypto, maintaining the Aave protocol. But we will get to that in a moment. But before that, I would like for you to tell everyone in the audience, what you do at Aave and what is your background.
Yeah, so I'm Ernesto, as Harry said. I'm the co-founder of a company called BGD Labs, and we are one of the contributors to Aave, doing core development, maintenance, and so on of the Aave protocol. And well, my story goes from back in the days, of the 6 years that Harry mentioned, because I was part of Aave back then in 2018, when Aave, I think it was not called even Aave. And basically what I do is everything related with tech on Aave. So that includes majorly what surrounds the smart contracts, which can be upgrades of the protocol, design of certain new features, but also basically everything around. So more related with this conference, coordinating the security, so thinking what new tools to apply, what new procedures to apply, and so on and so forth. So yeah, to summarize, I do a bit of everything related with the Aave protocol.
OK, great. So moving on to Merlin, you ended up building one of the hottest projects of this year, which is Morpho. Tell us your story and how you ended up building Morpho.
Right. So I think, if I remember, I met Paul during Eve Global Hackathon. I think it was during the confinement. And he had this, later on, he reached to me, and he wanted to build a new protocol. A researcher at the time had the first idea of optimizer, Morpho optimizer, which was basically building and on top of existing lending pools and try to improve rates for both suppliers and borrowers. So Paul wanted to work on that idea. And so he reached out to me. At this moment, I was building and trying some stuff in the DeFi space. I was playing with the credit delegation on Aave. It was really fun, and I wanted to create a project in that space. So he called me, and I was like, OK, let's go. Stars are aligned. So and so we created the first version after maybe 1 year after during our studies. And so we launched, I think, first Morpho Compound, which was optimizing rates on top of Compound. And after we launched on top of Aave, and so that started. And I think during bear market, we reached 2 billion of deposited asset on optimizers.
OK, great. Moving on to Erik. He has an interesting background coming from Web2 security, and he joined Euler after the unfortunate hack. Tell us your story and how you started working at Euler.
I guess so I'm the head of cybersecurity at Euler Labs. I was in the Web3 gaming industry working as the head of cybersecurity there. They were the market wasn't doing well, so they were doing layoffs. And I came up with the opportunity to go work at DeFi, which I was super excited because I love trading, investing, and I thought it was a great opportunity. And yeah, so I started working at Euler. Actually found a bug on my interview. They were doing, oh, I don't know if I can talk about it, but they were not validating some input, and I quickly found that I could just like spam it, and I got the job. Yeah, so I manage the organizational security. I do a lot of the stuff that Pablito Eve was talking about, like ensuring that we're running antivirus and all the good stuff that he mentioned. I organize all the security audits, the pen testing, and yeah, it's been a great experience working there.
Okay, moving on to Sara. I think you've been quite involved lately on pushing transient storage to, everyone's. I know you were pushing it in the Solidity compiler and convincing other people to use it as well. Tell us your background and the work you do at Uniswap.
Yes. Hi, I'm Sara. I'm one of the senior protocol engineers at Uniswap. Most recently, I've been working on V4, and even before V4, like Hari said, I was working on really trying to rally the community around transient storage. I think it unlocked a lot for developers like myself. Yeah, before Uniswap, I was in college, so
Great.
That's my story.
So maybe starting with you as well. So what is something that you believe the Uniswap team does that nobody else is doing out there, and something that you believe is like truly unique? And I would ask the same question to everyone, but replacing Uniswap with your own team. So tell us something that you do that's unique to your team and you think everyone else should be doing.
That's a hard one off the bat. I think that it's hard to pick out a specific unique thing that we do. I can maybe share like some unique stories, but I think we're all in the similar boat here of kind of building protocols in the open. We have a lot of eyes on our protocols all the time, so I think there's a lot of similarities we share. One, I guess, unique story, as we were going through the audit process, there were moments where a lot of the engineers on the team, we had fixes for some of these things, but they weren't great. We didn't feel really good about them. And, in that case, what do you do? I think we were going to have to settle with kind of a fix. And one thing that's really cool, I think that all of us shares, we're building these things in the open. We can have conversations in the open, and we really leveraged that. So I think this was at ETH Prague, maybe? I'm forgetting which conference, but one of a community member basically proposed a solution to one of our critical issues, and that's actually the current solution in the code today. And so I think really leaning into kind of building in the open and leveraging sort of diverse expertise in a lot of different areas is something that our team does and has worked well for us.
Yeah, I think that's a great story. I see there's tons of PRs in the Uniswap repo all the time from random developers. Some of them gets in, some of them doesn't, but it's always good to have that kind of community getting engaged into building a protocol. What about you, Erik? What is something that Euler uniquely does?
I think, we do many things, but I think we start internal reviews. I think that's pretty unique. I bet you guys also do it, so I don't know. We start with internal reviews. We start even before we finalize the code, we start early. We started a vCISO review, even the code wasn't finished. But we started getting feedback on the architecture, the security design. Something I think that is very unique is that we did a live CTF, it was very difficult and high risk, but we decided to put our money in first to kind of actually try it out and see if anybody could take it. I think that was,
Yeah, I know the behind the scenes behind it. Would you mind explaining to everyone what you did? I think that's a fascinating story.
Yeah, so in order to kickstart Euler, we decided that it would be a good idea to actually put our funds from the governance to start the first lending pools. And we wanted to be like super safe, cross all the T's. Like 3 times we already went through a Cantina competition. We were still confident, but we wanted to be like super 100% sure. So we did a live CTF with hats, and the idea was to put 5 million in, and if anybody could take it, they could take it. And the idea was like, try your best to break it. And it was an exciting and scary moment. Also, it was difficult with regulations and like trying to figure out like how to make it in a way that, we were putting money out there and like protecting it. And so we had a very diligent process, like reviewing the terms of service of how this would operate, which I think it's been one of the toughest things, but it was a thrill, and I'm glad that like we didn't lose anything.
Yeah, I mean, that's good to know. I always find it hard when engineers want to do stuff, but the legal comes and say you can't do this. It's very annoying. Moving on to you, Merlin, what is something that's unique to Morpho?
Right, that's a good question. So we do internal reviews, but we haven't done the CTF, which is like a good thing to try maybe next time. Anyway, so I think like one thing that is different from on Morpho, so we've went from building optimizers on top of Aave to like creating our own lending protocol. And I think like the way we view how to build like a safe and scalable protocols have evolved a lot during those 2-3 years. And now I'd say that the approach of Morpho of building protocols is like really about like minimalism, trying to do just one thing but do it perfectly. Trying to remove as much as possible the governance in the process. In fact, it's really similar to how Uniswap like is building the protocol since the beginning, like simple code, trying to externalize like the thing that you don't want to see in your protocol, like the oracles for DEXs. For lending protocol, it can be like a stable rates or leverage features, etc. All those kind of things can be externalized, and in fact, you just like refine and try to simplify as much as possible your protocol, so that even before starting the writing the lines of code, you've just maybe removed like 90% of the likelihood and the attack surface. And I think this is like a very good approach to make sure that you're starting like the right way and make like all the process of like stacking security layers after much easier.
What about you, Ernesto? What is something that's unique to Aave? I mean, it's one of the most battle-tested protocols out there.
I would say like the thing that probably differentiates Aave is that we know how to find equilibrium, which is a bit abstract, but what I mean is that when you are like for quite some time, like in production and very high stakes, it's pretty important to understand like how far we are with new features, you go with new features versus how much you are conservative, or how much pressure you receive from competitors, like from the market, versus how much you need to take care of, let's say your back office of clean up and so on. So I think that is one of the keys of the success of Aave, because we know pretty well, like on when we should improve something or when we feel that maybe that should not be touched, and still keeping the rhythm like with everybody else in the market. There are then probably some other aspects that I think Aave is pretty different, but that is maybe some that is not so told publicly so frequently.
That makes sense. So I have a follow-up question to that, which is, so people talk about this idea of defense in depth in security. It's the idea that you do multiple things, hoping that even if you miss somewhere, it will be caught at some layer. And there was a great story about how Aave did this. And the story was about how Aave discovered a bug in the LLVM compiler framework. So for those who don't know, LLVM is a compiler framework for creating new programming languages. And for some reason, Aave ended up finding a bug in the LLVM when it had no place in like finding a bug there. So I wanna learn about the story from Ernesto. How did you find a bug in? How did your team find a bug in LLVM?
Yeah, I mean, first, like I maybe will summarize a bit how was the bug. So basically, what happened is that Aave, as you probably know, like is in multiple networks, and we keep expanding like the V3 protocol to new networks. And so this was in the context of expanding to CK Sync. And well, the process is that contracts get deployed, the DAO needs to activate them via governance proposal, so on and so forth. But what we try to achieve always is that the code is kind of the same, like or completely the same across all the networks. So this case was very strange because there was a deployment on CK Sync, there was an activation, everything seemed to be working perfectly fine. And then in the first seconds or so, it was noticed, like I will elaborate on that just after, like it was noticed that a very core mechanism of Aave was not working well, like related with the collateralization, which is basically the most critical aspect of the protocol. So, well, it happened to be that after pausing the protocol and so on, there was a bug in the compilation stage of the LLVM, which is like the backend library for the compiler used by the CK Sync compiler. So very, very deep thing. So yeah, like when you tell that story, it looks that, yeah, other guys are so smart, like they found it like that. But I would like to highlight this is quite different what happened. Like, I think that the key on why the bug was found, and this is related with, well, this ethos of Ethereum and of the community of saying, yeah, decentralization and so on and so forth. This bug was probably found because of the decentralization of Aave. Because it's not only one team, like in practice, like who is involved into the activation process of a new Aave pool. Like, okay, we do the deployment on BD Labs, we do a lot of testing and so on the initial stage, but then we have like Certora, which does independent reviews. We have Aave Labs, which, for example, in this particular case, what happened was that all the tests were fine. Like the formal verification, let's say, was not possible to completely apply, but seemed fine, like from the Certora side, the review. And then while testing like the user interface, like one particular edge case, like in this case, Aave Labs, that maintains the interface, they noticed like that edge case. And then that initiated like the whole thing, like of, okay, what is happening here? But first we pause, then we try to understand. But I think that was the strong point, because there are certain types of bugs that it doesn't matter how smart you are, like, or even how much procedures a single company can have. Like, when you have multiple entities involved into the chain, then is when those problems are detected. So I think that is like, a good point of view for it.
Yeah, I think that's a fascinating story. So LLVM framework is used by like pretty much every big compiler, like Clang, like, or like pretty much every programming language out there uses it in the Web2 space. So very fascinating to see like Aave built in Solidity ended up finding a bug in LLVM, and the story is always fascinating. So going on to Morpho, so at Spearbit, we have worked with Morpho for a very long time. We met them back when they were a very young protocol that had a simple idea: let's optimize the rates for lending protocols. Since then, Morpho evolved quite a bit. They went from working on top of Compound and Aave to having an entirely different philosophy on how lending protocols are designed. So how did your team change your engineering culture during this massive shift?
Right. So first, we deployed the optimizer on top of Compound and Aave, and in fact we realized we were like super deep into the code base of those both protocols, and like very at the same time providing a lending experience for of our users. And I think we are also the user, like as a protocol, like the closest to the underlying protocol, Aave or Compound. So we had like those two different views as both a user and a lending protocol, and we realized that it was kind of hard to build on top of a upgradable smart contract when you are so deep, because or a contract that can be updated quite frequently, because any change to risk parameters or of the code base of the logic can impact you and either break your integration or block some features for your users, etc. So we had to have a constant monitoring of that. Whenever there was a pausing, something that we needed to jump in war rooms and make sure that everything is smooth. And it proved to be super challenging for us. And also we were facing directly what are the limits of the current design and current paradigm of building Lightning protocols. And so at some point we told ourselves hey, instead of trying to improve what is the current optimizer stack, let's just build a landing protocol, the one that we would have liked to integrate. And let's define what are the design principles and what really we want this primitive to do, and that's how we ended up building our own landing protocol that is called Morphoblue, that we've deployed early February this year. I don't remember exactly, but which is totally immutable, permissionless, governance minimized, where markets are isolated, etc., etc. But that's
and how did your team's engineering culture change? You went from building this upgradable contracts to fully immutable.
So I think we started without bias. So we don't have a finance background. Most of the founding team, we haven't worked for another company. Except ourselves, when Paul and I we started on both sides trying to launch startups, etc. So I think we had no bias, so we were not we didn't have any affinity to upgradable contract or immutable contract or a specific design, and so we just welcome criticism and tried always to ask ourselves hey, is there a better way to do a landing, and if there's the answer is yes, so let's just dive deep and try to find how to make it better, instead of trying to stick to one way of thinking.
That makes sense. Moving on to Erik. So the history of the Euler protocol is a bit of a roller coaster. There were a truly innovative protocol that innovated in lending back when everyone was trying to launch an Aave or a compound fork. And Euler was one of the few protocols that truly innovated in what they were building. And they had a great team. They put a lot of work into security, but they had a very unfortunate incident, the Euler hack. And the roller coaster was, they managed to get all the money back. In fact, I think at some point the money was even bigger than what was lost. So tell us the story about the Euler hack and some of the recovery and how you came into the team. And moving on from that, you ended up building a version 2 of the Euler protocol, which I think is one of the most hardened protocols in crypto today, considering all the work they put into security, including the $5 million on-chain CDF where anyone can try to hack and keep the money if they do it. So tell us the story of how the Euler went from going through the hack to recovering it to building one of the most hardened protocols out there.
Yeah, I mean, I wasn't part of the company, so I mean, what I can say is that it was probably very devastating to my teammates. It was difficult. It was definitely a roller coaster. I think if you really want to learn more about it, I recommend reading the very well-detailed called War and Peace. It's a blog post by Michael. Really detailed about his experience. It also has personal side to it. I mean, I think he just has a newborn and all this thing was happening and the negotiation and everything that went part of it. But luckily, yeah, we were able to recover all the funds and try to make right with everybody. After that, I guess the team decided that they wanted to continue. They went into building. Initially, we just wanted to fix the bug and relaunch, but then I guess they got inspired about how to make it better, make it more flexible, make it more modular. They wanted to build like something completely new and creative and be more robust. And so we went on this giant journey that then I became part of. I think I'd never seen when I joined, I was like pretty impressed of like the commitment. We threw like 3 kitchen sinks or even like 10 kitchen sinks into security. The other day I was doing the math. We did 700 days of audits.
Oh, wow.
Like, it's more time than I've been in the company. If you add it up, we've done like amazing work working with Spearbit, Chain Security, Certora, formal investigation for like 6 months. It was great help like creating all this invariance and all the work that Y Audit has also been an excellent partner. It was really cool because so as things were getting finished, we started audits. Like for example, DVC got audited about like 9 times. Then once we had DVC, which was one of like the core components, then we started working in the EVK, then we started audits with Spearbit, Chain Security, Y Audit. Then there were smaller components, so we worked with other companies like Omnitia, then we kept on building. Then we started working on the price oracle. And so like all the code got like at least, I think our philosophy was not to just rely on one single auditor, but like try to get as many eyes into the development and design. And then we went part of like doing the code competition with Cantina, which was another roller coaster because we wanted to launch soon, but we got like, I guess 472 issues. 500 plus participants, and we went through each report, took our time, commented. It was really fun working with the community. It was stressful for my team because we put like a lot of time into our replies. And then, we followed by the live CTF. And now we're working on like on-chain monitoring and just making sure that everything is working perfectly. We have some cool like features, like if we ever detect like a depeg or any asset depegs, we can like set supply caps to 0 so we can unwind markets. And there's a lot of things we're doing after the fact for like incident response. And I'm like, really proud of what we end up building. Like it's pretty amazing. Also the internal security that we're managing, we're doing Web 2 pen tests, and like I could keep going on and on. But yeah, it's been a roller coaster, definitely, Harry.
Yeah, I mean, I can totally.
Thank you for being part of it.
Yeah, I can totally imagine. I feel like Euler v2 at this point is one of the hardened protocols. I can't imagine any other protocol putting in more work to security. That brings me to Uniswap. So Uniswap is pretty much synonymous to DeFi today. And back in 2022, there was this Ethereum merge. And the whole idea of the merge was you switch out the consensus protocol live. And there was like a few months ago, or maybe like a few weeks ago, there was the rocket launch of the SpaceX, and it came back to Earth. And somebody was asking the question, what is the software equivalent of a rocket going up and launching back intact? And somebody said it's the Ethereum merge. And I was thinking about how every few years, Uniswap has to go through something similar where they have a perfectly working protocol, trillions of dollars in volume, and they have to suddenly switch out to an entirely new protocol, expecting billions of dollars in TVL in like a couple of days. So how does the Uniswap team do this switch every few years?
Yeah, it's a really good question. And I really like that analogy because I think this is similar for Uniswap, but other protocols as well, of our development process is definitely more akin to building hardware. It's a release, and there's no upgrades after that. And so I think that's also a feature. It's an opt-in upgrade for users, and that's how we like to frame it as well. And so as we're going into the launch of V4, that's kind of our framing is, users don't have to use V4. If there are compelling reasons to, you should. And we definitely think that there are. But yeah, it's definitely, I think, sort of the nature of building really immutable protocols.
And how does a team handle all the stress of like, you launch it and you expect in a couple of days that $1 billion are going to flow into this protocol? Like what does your team do that? I feel like very few teams in crypto has to manage that level of insanity.
Yeah. I think, listening to Euler's kind of process on like hardening, I think we definitely didn't spend 700 days, but we did put in a lot of time. I think back in March, we had like a whole like 5-ish month plan outlined for what all the audit processes look like. We're gonna start monitoring. I mean, it's everything I think everybody here has done. And it is a lot of stress, but at the end of the day, I think it doesn't lie on one person. It's like a lot of different people contributing to this, and it goes through a lot of different eyes. And so we have to have trust in our ability. Yeah.
Okay, amazing. So I want to give some time to the audience to ask 1 or 2 questions. So if anyone has a question to like one of the team members, this is your time.
Cheers. Yeah, this is for Sara. I was just wondering with V4, like when you're building out hooks, what are like some of the common issues you see with people building hooks, or security issues that you see from people just getting into hooks in the beginning?
Yeah, that's a great question. I haven't done any specific like audits around any particular hooks. I think I guess off the top of my head, what I would talk about is certain checks that you should be doing in hooks. Like a really simple, easy one is like checking that the caller is the pool manager. That's a really simple check like every hook should have, but if you're new to writing hooks, maybe you wouldn't know. Another thing to think about, I think, is like the interaction of different hook permissions. One thing that I'll talk about later today is how I think one principle in building hooks is limiting those permissions and that permission set. So a very naive hook developer might, okay, let's make an upgradable hook and enable all the permissions, and we're going to change, when the pool is calling out to my hook. That's definitely a scary hook, and I think for a lot of users and a lot of other routers and other integration contracts down the line is going to be something really hard to integrate with. And so lean into, I think all that is to say is lean into the side of building hooks where you have predetermined kind of permissions and flags and things that you can do in your hook. And if you ever need something different in that hook, it's really easy to do a new pool. And I imagine seeing a V4 where there's lots of different pools, lots of different hooks, but it's sort of per pool. Yeah, that's what I would say.
Yeah, and that makes sense. And just one follow-up, I guess, how do you guys envisage how people will access hooks once V4 goes live? Like, will you guys have sort of a directory of hooks that you think are safe, or how do you sort of see how you'll direct people to hooks that should be okay to interact with?
Yeah, so I think about hooks a lot like tokens. So we built token lists, and I think that something similar could happen for hooks. Right now we're working with the foundation on kind of establishing sort of a standard around hooks interfaces. And this will be really great so front ends can build out hey, here's a hooks directory of how to learn about hooks and how to verify it actually on chain by calling into a contract. That's still being worked on, but I could imagine it looking something like a iHooks metadata interface or something like that.
Perfect. Thank you.
There's questions there.
A great panel. Thank you. So this is sort of a flip-sided question, right? Majority of the security conference is really about, us security researchers preaching, talking about how protocols should do better, developers should do better, users should do better. But on the flip side, what do you protocol teams think that we should do better, as in the security community in general, maybe the security researchers or security projects, what can we do better to support your dev life cycle, make your lives less chaotic, less intense?
Yeah, maybe I can comment. Yeah, I think that sometimes there is too much disconnection between like the security community, and sometimes it even feels that it's growing as more security like experts enter into the field. There is more disconnection between them and like the developers of the protocol, which is, I would say, quite unnatural, especially in this field, because like we as developers like are there is no separation between almost development and security, especially like in protocols like can it be Aave, because obviously you design the things and security considerations are maybe like 60% of the whole design. Like, so I think that is a good exercise like for security researchers to try to always put themselves like in the position of the developer, like try to understand because maybe the documentation sometimes is not so good like in some projects, but do a lot of questions to the developers and try to understand like the point of view of why something was done the way it was done. Because maybe with some teams that don't have much experience, it's just by default, but knowing even that is very valuable. But with teams that have pretty good experience or strong positions, is a good way to learn. Okay, what is the developer thinking? Why maybe there was this mistake done that created this vulnerability? So I think improving the communication probably is something that will give a lot of value to security researchers.
Okay. What is the one thing that each of you worry about at night? What's the highest risk for each of you on your protocols?
Sorry, I did not get.
Sorry.
What keeps you up at night?
What?
What keeps you at night? Do you sleep well? And if not, what is keeping you up at night?
Jet lagged.
Sorry, what is just the one highest risk for all of you that you worry about the most?
What keeps us awake?
Yeah, that keeps you awake at night.
No internet. Being disconnected.
Yeah, I don't know. I think that is actually something very important, because it's what Harry said. It's a bit insanity if you think too much, on what is at stake. You will just go to a cave and not do anything anymore. So I think it's just very important to keep, the equilibrium that I mentioned before, but also personal equilibrium in the sense that you need to be cool. You need to understand that some problem can happen, some bug can happen. But if you know that you did things right, or what you believe is right, usually, it should be fine. I personally don't have any problem to sleep at night because of that. I know that there is high responsibility, but it's only negative if you give too much importance.
Right, same. I think we are out of time, so.
Okay. So thanks everyone for the panel. I think it was great answers, and we all learned so much from all of you.
Thank you.